Hello, I'm Eric. You know, this has been a difficult video to record. It has been plagued with technical difficulties and other problems, and hopefully I get it right this time. I'm sorry if I keep clearing my voice. Allergy season, and yeah. In addition, I've been recording a lot of heavy metal vocals, and it's kind of rough on the throat. Now, in this episode, what I am going to talk about is being arrested. And actually, I'm going to talk about some of my experiences going into prison, what led to me going to prison, stuff like that. I was locked up when I was 17 years old for kidnapping a man and shooting him. And I am going to explain that to you. I am going to explain what it's like to go to prison when you're 17. Usually, I give you positive stuff about, transitioning from a prison environment to the streets. I spent all of my adult life in prison up until I was 28. So making that transition from a prison environment to the free world is pretty difficult. And I think people need some positive ideas, some positive insights, some different approaches to situations that might arise out here that are unfamiliar to people who've spent a lot of time in prison. So that's what the channel's about for the most part. But that's not what this one's going to be about. Now, I just want to say thank you very much to all the people that have subscribed to me. I don't have a lot of subscribers, and I don't ever ask for subscribers. That's not my goal. My goal is not to get my channel monetized. That would be cool, but that's not my goal. My goal is just to help people. If someone can gain some helpful insight or encouragement from my videos, that's my goal. So that said, thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I really appreciate it. And I'm not going to beg you guys to subscribe. I'm not going to beg you guys for likes. Like what you want to like, dislike what you want to like. If you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do. That said, there is something that I do want you to do. Leave a comment. And if you know somebody who's getting out of prison or who has been in prison or something like that, or who might be in danger of going to prison, share this video with them. But leave a comment for sure, because I would like to have a dialogue with you. I love conversation. I love meeting people. I love experiencing them, learning about them. So I would love to hear from you. And it could be, hi, how you doing? I liked the video. I hated the video. Cut your hair. You look like a hippie. Keep your hair. You look like Jesus. Ideas for upcoming videos. Questions about what prison was like. Anything like that. Just, hey, I want to talk to you. Now, I'm going to get into this video. What I'm talking about is what it's like to be arrested when I was 17. So, when I was 17 years old, I was arrested for kidnapping a guy and shooting him. It was about a month after I turned 17, and me and two other guys took this dude out in the woods. We beat him up and we shot him. And the reason for that is we believed he was a child molester. Now, I'm not saying that he did it because I don't want a lawsuit for, what do they call it, defamation of character. Even though the guy's not alive anymore. He didn't die immediately, but he's not alive anymore. And I also don't want to drag the dude's name through the mud, being that he's dead. It just seems kind of disrespectful, but whatever. We believe this guy was a pedophile. And there are people out there who will say that I actually shot the guy because he was a rat. That's only part of the story. You see, the guy was a confidential informant. He worked with the police. And when he got arrested for touching some little kids, the cops let him go because he was an informant and because he was telling on people who were basically drug dealers. Low-level people. They weren't even movers or anything. So, yes, he was a rat. But I didn't shoot him just because he was a rat. I didn't kidnap him just because he was a rat. He ratted to get out of charges for touching kids. Now, once again, this is all alleged. I'm not saying he did it. This is what I believe happened. I have reasons to believe it. But, you know, not saying that that was actually the case. I'm not saying I'm right. This is what I believe to be true. And I have my reasons for it. Now, me and these two guys, we picked this guy up. We kidnapped him, which I didn't even consider it kidnapping at the time, but we took him out of the woods, we beat him up, and we shot him. Was it the right thing to do? I'm not saying it was the right thing to do. I'm not trying to justify my actions. I'm just telling you, black and white, this is what I did. I don't try to run from the responsibility of it. That's what I did. I'm telling you what I did and why. Okay. The next day, which he didn't die immediately. Okay, the bullet lodged in his spine. He was paralyzed from the chest down. And the next day, I was arrested. I was leaving my house. I took my sister's car out of town because there was a firearm in my car, and I didn't want the cops to get it. I knew they'd been watching my house all day. Seen the car up the street, cop car. There was another one down another street. And this is a town of 120 people. You know, you don't see cops in town a lot. In the county that I live in, I think they had like 4 sheriff's deputies on duty at that time. They did not have the personnel to station 2 cops in this little tiny town. So, I knew they were there for me, and I took my sister's car out of town. I told my dad before I left, I said, hey man, don't let anyone go near my car. And he said, why, what's going on? And, you know, I didn't tell him. I just said, just don't let anyone go near my car. Now, my dad was an ex-con. He knew something was up immediately, you know, but he didn't say anything. He just said, okay. So I take my sister's car, I take it out of town, and I make sure to drive past the cop car that was sitting on the street. I wanted him to look at me, see me, lead him away from my house and my car. And it worked. He saw me and immediately started following me. He wasn't going to let me get out of his sight. So, drive up the road. They ended up forming a roadblock in front of me and behind me. I didn't run, but they thought I was armed and dangerous. So, but it wasn't my car. I had no gun on me, and there's nothing in the car that shouldn't have been there. And they pulled their guns on me. Of course, I'm 17, you know. I don't know what to think about all that. But they drew their guns on me, shotguns, you name it. I would guess there was probably like 15, 20 cops there. They had highway patrol there, they had KBI there, sheriff's officers, police officers, you know. They took me to an interrogation room, and then that took a long time. And they held me in the interrogation room just with nobody in there for a long time, and then they brought me to jail. And it's all surreal, you know, when something like that happens, you just kind of go numb. I did. Some people would probably get real scared. Some people would probably freak out. I did just the opposite. It's like I turned into a zombie or something. It's like it was happening to somebody else. And I think that's because I'd already been through some traumatic stuff. You know, I didn't have a great childhood. There was a lot of physical abuse in my home, a lot of verbal abuse. You know, my mother was addicted to opiates for a long time, and she got physically abusive. She drank from time to time. One time she tied me up, you know, she literally hog-tied me, can't talk. This is hard for me to talk about. So if I start stuttering, I apologize. She tied my hands together with rope, tied my ankles together with rope, tied them both behind my back, tied them together so my wrists and ankles were tied to each other behind my back. So I was hogtied, and then she grabbed me by that rope that was connected to my wrists and ankles, chucked me across the room. So I landed on my chest and my face, and she tied those ropes so tight I lost circulation in my hands, and they turned purple, and had it not been for a friend that was over, who came over, my hands might have been damaged by that, because I don't think my mom would have let me out of them ropes anytime soon. She had been drinking, and this was all after she beat the shit out of me. She threw rocks at one of my older sisters on one occasion. She, I don't mean to run my parents into the ground. My dad was physically abusive as well, but, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to run my parents into the ground. I love my parents, I really do. Everybody messes up, and I'm not justifying what they did. I'm not justifying what I did. I'm not saying all this happened because my parents were messed up. I'm just saying this is what was going on in my life. We can't justify our wrongdoings, but we can try to understand the situations that people are in that can contribute to their mentality, if that makes sense. Contributing factors. And, ultimately we all have a choice of what we do with ourselves. And I wasn't making good choices. I really wasn't. So, I'd been in a lot of situations where I'd just been numb before, and guess what? In this situation, I was numb. I didn't really feel it. I didn't feel panic. I just thought to myself, well, it's all over. They ended up charging me with attempted murder, aggravated kidnapping. I had a pending case from fighting with my dad. Like, me and my dad had legit fights, knives pulled, fists thrown. Yeah. But I had a pending case from fighting with my dad. I had aggravated assault and battery with a deadly weapon and a few other charges. And basically, I would have been sentenced on that case before this one. So it would have put me in what we call A box in Kansas. In Kansas, they have a sentencing grid that they go by to determine how long you're going to be in prison. And that would have put me in prison for a really long time on this case. And I didn't know any of this at the time. I was just a kid, 17 years old. And they took me to juvie. The other two guys that were with me, one of them was, I think, a few months from turning 18. The other was already 18. So, one of my co-defendants ended up in the Juvenile detention center with me. We call it a JDC. And the other went to county jail. Now, the JDC, when I got there, it was already dark outside, pretty late. They process me, basically. They bring you in there. They ask you a bunch of questions, your address, your family members, all this stuff. Ask you if you have any tattoos or anything like that, and, all that good stuff. And then they strip search you. That was my first time being strip searched. So when you get strip searched, probably one of the most dehumanizing things that can ever happen to you. And it happens a lot when you're incarcerated. A lot. When you're strip searched, it makes you feel like you don't have the right to your own body. Someone else can tell you exactly what to do, and it's irritating. You like to have some semblance of control over yourself. And so when they strip search you, they take you into a little room, usually a bathroom or something like that, because it has to be a place where there's no cameras. And they have you remove all your clothes, and they're searching through your clothes as you're taking them off. And then you basically do what we call the hokey pokey. So we call it that because it's, once you've done it a million times, it's kind of like a dance. You put your hands out in front of you. Show them the fronts and backs of your hands. You shake your hair out if you have long hair. Shake your beard out if you have a long beard. At that time, I was 17. I didn't have a beard. You open your mouth, you lift your tongue, you pull your lips down and up and your cheeks out, and then they want you to lift your sack so they can look under your balls, and then they want you to turn around and squat and cough. And so, this big dude, he was a bouncer at a club, big black dude, he was a power lifter. And he always tried to intimidate people. Like, he'd just give you that look. Some looked like he meant business or something, but he was a really nice guy. But he took me in there and he strip searched me, and that was the first of many, but it just feels dehumanizing, I guess. Makes you feel like you don't have any rights or something, I guess. Anyway, so they did that, strip search me, brought me my Browns. They give you these Browns, they're like a smock or something, it's whatever. It's not fancy clothing. It's not comfortable clothing. It is utilitarian. It serves a practical purpose. Then they brought me to my cell, and they put me in there with a 13-year-old dude who was there for stabbing somebody in his school, which he wasn't even successful at stabbing someone. They were talking about charging him as an adult with attempted murder. He tried to stab some guy, and he was using a folding pocket knife, and the knife folded up on his own fingers, sliced his fingers up, almost took his fingers off. Stupid, very stupid. It's whatever, though. I say that a lot. It's whatever. But the JDC sucked. So they had lights out at 10:30. I think I got there, it was already after lights out. First day there, you had to stay locked in your cell for 24 hours. And the next day, my court-appointed attorney shows up and he says, hey, I think I could get you a great deal for, if you take a plea, I can get you like 20 years. I'm 17 years old. 20 years is not the number I wanted to hear. Not at all. That's a long time. 20 years. I wasn't even 20 years old yet. So, I told him to get the fuck out of there. And I returned to my cell to complete my 24-hour lockdown. JDC had horrible food, especially in Franklin County where I was at. The food was cheap. It was put together in a hurry, and it was made out of leftover crap that nobody else wanted to eat. Basically, how it worked, you weren't allowed to have anything in your cell. Nothing. We couldn't even have soap in our cell. Not permanently. So we'd wake up first thing in the morning. I'm talking like 4 or 5 in the morning, real early in the morning. They'd wake us up. We had to do a standing count. We had to line up against the wall, let them count us. And then we got to clean, which involved scrubbing toilets, mopping floors, cleaning tables, cleaning phones, all that good stuff. And then we could go in, I believe we ate breakfast after that. And they had these tables out there in the day room. Day room's basically where you congregate when you're not locked in your cell. They had these tables out there, and they had these little plastic chairs. You could go get a plastic chair and sit down. But if you went and you got one of them plastic chairs without asking, you had to ask to sit down to eat in this JDC. If you sat down without asking, then they would take the chair away from you and they would make you stand while you ate. So just one of those ways that they try to dehumanize you, break you down a little bit. And they also had other stupid rules, but I'll get into that in a minute. But after you ate breakfast, you were permitted to return to your cell. And every time you returned to your cell, you had to get pat searched. Basically, what that, consisted of is you would face away from the officer. You'd put your arms out, spread your legs, and they'd pat you down. And when they were confident that you didn't have anything on you, They would put you in there. We weren't allowed to have anything in our cell, not even shoes. We had to take our shoes off, which were actually like sandals, at the door, and then we could go in our cell. Sorry, I had a late night last night. So, once you were in your cell, they would give you a hygiene kit. Remember, it's still early in the morning. They would give you a hygiene kit, and you could wash your hands, brush your teeth, comb your hair. That's basically all that was in it. You had a comb, you had a toothbrush, you had some soap. I think there was some deodorant in there and like a ketchup packet. This is what it looks like. It looks like a little condiment packet full of gel deodorant. And so you had a half hour to use that and make your bed, and then they would let you back out in the day room. And most of the people, since it was a juvenile facility, at that time most people would start doing schoolwork. I wasn't in school at the time. I was waiting to go to Job Corps. So I didn't do schoolwork. I read. And reading is something else that everybody had to do. You had to read for so long each day. That's pretty much what everybody did between breakfast and lunch. They read and they studied, which was cool with me. I like books. And even if I had schoolwork to do at the time, I probably would have done it. I like to learn. That's my thing. And then they would serve us lunch, which was a hot tray. But the food, once again, was bad. Not good. There's usually some version of canned or frozen vegetables and a mystery meat and some pasta that looked like cat vomit. It wasn't good. And we would eat lunch, and then we could play cards or something like that. Now, the JDC had a lot of weird rules. So you could play cards, you could talk to each other, but you weren't allowed to talk about your case. You weren't allowed to cuss. You weren't allowed to talk about anything they deemed inappropriate. And there would be a guard sitting in there in the day room at all times, listening to what was going on. If you broke the rules, if you broke any rule, you had to do 25 push-ups. It would say, hey, you did this. You need to give me 25 push-ups. If you broke another rule, you got a lockdown. I think it was for like an hour or something like that. After that, if you broke the rules again, 2-hour lockdown. After that, 24-hour lockdown. After that, 48-hour lockdown. And after that, it was indefinite until they said you could get off the lockdown. So it was kind of frustrating. You couldn't really talk about much. Couldn't talk about, these are young men, these are teenagers. Couldn't talk about girls. Couldn't cuss. Couldn't talk about, anything that they deemed inappropriate. And usually when you're locked up and you're that young, you want to talk about your case. You want to talk about how frustrated you are. You want to talk about stuff like that. You want to talk about how angry you are. You want to cuss. You want to light the world on fire. And couldn't say any of that. You could say it in your cell when you were alone, when it was just you and your cellie. And I had a pretty cool cellie. I had a few cool cellies when I was there. They weren't bad dudes. Everybody tried to act like they were super tough, though. That's the thing with young men. They always want to act like they're super tough. Especially in institutional environments. That's how they act. So, after we played cards, you could do that in the day room or whatever for a little while. We would play cards, and we couldn't watch TV at that point. So that's what we would do. We would play cards for a while, and then we would lock up for shift change. They would do that. They would do another count, and at dinner time we could come back out, which was around 5:30 or something. And I believe after chow, we got put back in our cell for a while, I think. I know that we had to wait a while before day room, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe we came right out. I don't really remember. But in the evenings, we had PT. Oh, let's talk about dinner, because that was fantastic. Dinner sucked. I think you're probably seeing a pattern here, but dinner was pretty much like a bologna sandwich. Real cheap bologna, not the type of bologna you buy in grocery stores. very low quality bologna, like a slice of meat, slice of cheese, and they served the soup. So the vegetables, there was this rumor that in Franklin County, I don't know if it was true or not. There was a rumor though that they would take the uneaten vegetables off the lunch tray and they would throw it in a pot and make soup out of it. Which whatever vegetables we had at lunchtime, it was in a soup at dinner. The cat vomit pasta and whatever vegetables were on the tray ended up in a soup at night. So there's some noodles and with some shit floating in it and some veggies that may or may not have come off of another person's tray. Sounds good, right? So after that, oh yeah, and the one good thing about lunch and dinner, there was usually a cookie. So yeah, there was that. So after dinner, evening day room, I believe we played cards for quite a bit. Sometimes if we had enough points or we were behaved, they would let us watch TV at night. They did showers at night. You had 10 minutes to take a shower. 10 minutes. That was all you got. No more. You know, and it wasn't just to take a shower. It was also to use your hygiene kit. So 10 minutes to get. They basically had this beanhole in the door that was near the guard station, near the control room. What a beanhole is basically a door inside of the steel door in the wall, and that pops open, and they'll hand you your clothes through that and your soap through that, your hygiene kit. And they'd give you a squirt of shampoo. So they would call you for shower. They'd call your name after whoever got out of the shower. They randomized the order. And they would call your name. You would go up there. They'd put your clothes, your new smocks on the beanhole, along with your hygiene kit and some shampoo. And from the moment you grabbed that, you had to book it to the shower and shower real fast. You had to get undressed, jump in the shower, wash, jump out of the shower, brush your hair, brush your teeth. Well, you're actually combing your hair because you couldn't have a hairbrush. Comb your hair, brush your teeth, use your deodorant and stuff, get dressed, and get back out to the beanhole and hand them your old clothes within 10 minutes. It's kind of a pain, to be honest. So that's what we did in the evening. And we also had PT in the evenings on some nights. Actually, I think it was almost every night. So they would make us exercise. We had to do push-ups. We had to do sit-ups. We had to run, do squats, all that good stuff. And if we didn't, we'd get in trouble and get locked down. Like I said, there was nothing in the cells. After lockdown, it just felt like we were locked in our cells a lot with nothing, no books. Occasionally, if you were good, you could earn points. That's how the system's set up. You can earn privileges if you have points. And you could earn points so that you could have a photograph or two in your cell. Or a book for an extra half hour. You could take a book in your cell for a half hour after they locked us down. Stuff like that. But you couldn't have mail in your cell, really. They had a folder with all that stuff. On some nights, you could make a phone call for like 10 minutes or something to people that were on your approved calling list. So it seems like you were locked in your cell a lot with nothing to do. So you came to know your cellies pretty good. Talked a lot. And after lockdown, they didn't care if we talked. Lights out, I think, was at 9:30 or 10, something like that. So you weren't supposed to be loud after lights out. They didn't care if you talked to your cellie as long as you did so quietly. If you talked loudly, they would flip your light back on. Which even when the light was off, it wasn't actually off. It was just dim. Basically went to one light bulb, and when they turned the lights on, it went to two light bulbs. But if you were loud, they would turn on your lights to interfere with your sleep. Which really, if you're up talking, maybe you wanted the light on. I don't know. Anyway, I wasn't there very long, but I didn't enjoy it while I was there. It didn't seem like I had any freedom. You really get sleep deprived. I don't think I slept for the first week I was there. I was so stressed out about the case, wondering if I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison. I think they had recently brought the death penalty back. I wasn't even sure if my victim was alive or if he was going to live. And so I didn't know if I was looking at the death penalty. I didn't know if I was looking at life in prison. And the uncertainty wears on your mind. And like I said, I don't think I slept for the first week I was there. They ended up putting me on a whole bunch of psychotropic medications. I thought that I was crazy. Whatever. I wasn't. I don't think I was anyway, but I hear that someone who's truly crazy won't think that they're crazy. I don't know. Maybe I am crazy. But it was very taxing on my mind. Very taxing on my mind. I didn't enjoy being there. I didn't enjoy the uncertainty. I thought my future was over. When my parents came up to visit, having to see them cry because I was stuck there, having to see these other guys. Well, I saw one other guy who was in there with me, and I pulled the trigger. He was just there. Sure, he beat the guy up, and he was there. But he was looking at doing the rest of his life in prison as well because I pulled the trigger. And felt real bad. I can't tell you how much I thought about suicide at that point in my life. I just wanted to die. I didn't want to be around anymore. I wanted it all to be over. It wasn't something that I enjoyed at all. And then I was adjudicated. They were trying me as an adult. In Kansas, they have a list of criteria to try someone as an adult. If you meet 4 of those criteria, they can try you as an adult. I met 4 of those criteria. The 4 that I met, there was a firearm used in the commission of my crime. I was over 14 years old. I was over 14 years of age. I had malicious intent. I think there was another one. I don't remember what it was, but they adjudicated me. I had my hearing. I had a psychiatrist arguing that I wasn't functioning on the psychological level of an adult. Therefore, I shouldn't be charged as one. The state fought it, and they won. I was adjudicated. So, I went back to the JDC, and I waited for transport until they had a bed open in county jail. And I went back to Anderson County Jail. That's when stuff got real, because, I knew at that point, in the JDC, you could be held until you're 23 or something like that. But if they adjudicate you, if they try you as an adult, they can hold you for the rest of your life. They can charge you with consecutive life sentences, life without parole, all sorts of stuff. So I knew right then shit was going to get real. And it did. After that, I got transferred to an adult county jail. Everything changed after that. Everything changed. But I'll tell you more about that later in the videos that are to come, if you're interested. So that's pretty much it. I'm Eric, and I'll continue talking about this later, where I went from there after I left juvie, the JDC, and started my incarceration in adult facilities. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Keep tabs on my channel. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. That's up to you. But that's what we're about to get into. So you have a nice day. Stay good. I'll see you next time.